Recording in progress.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission regular meeting for April 10th. I call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Riddlemeyer.
Here.
Vice Chair Narita.
Here.
Chair Dorinsky.
Present.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
And Commissioner Michael is absent and excused.
Okay, thank you. For those attending in person, looks pretty sparse out there. Complete a yellow request to speak slip found in front of the room and hand it to our clerk. I'm going to bypass all of this because I'm not seeing any bodies out there. If participating virtually, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone virtual on phone?
There's one online, but
Yep.
no hands.
No hands online? Is there anyone online?
Just one online.
Okay, and phone?
She put her hand up now.
Okay, so we do. All right. All righty. The other way to participate is virtually. That is by phone by calling 408-638-0968 and entering conference ID number 3536406958, the number 5, and enter the passcode 635288. Once again, conference ID 8536406958 and the number 5 and the passcode 635288. Press the hash sign or the pound sign, and then press 9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, followed by comments to the commission. The other way to participate virtually is by clicking on the Zoom link found on the top of tonight's agenda. Use the Raise Your Hand feature and you will be called upon at the appropriate time. When called upon, please let us know who you are and provide your comments to the commission. We welcome all our speakers providing public comment, but speakers are recommended to focus their comments that are included on tonight's meeting agenda. There are 2 agenda items available for public comment. The first is what is referred to as the general public comment period, and the second is for the public will have a chance to comment on the quarterly review of the citywide bicycle and pedestrian projects. An item not requiring public comment and is next on our agenda is the consent calendar. There is one item for the commission to approve the minutes from the regular commission meeting of March 13th. Commissioners, do we have any questions, comments related to the meeting minutes?
I move approval.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call vote and announce results.
Commissioner Riddlemeyer.
Yes.
Vice Chair Narita.
Yes.
Chair Rowinski.
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is the general public comment section. This section allows the public to speak to the commission on an item not appearing on tonight's agenda. If a speaker speaks on an item to be heard, if a speaker during the general public comment period does choose to speak on an item that is on our agenda meeting, they will be asked hold up and wait for the proper time later in our meeting. State law prevents the Commission from acting on any matter not included on tonight's agenda. However, comments, particularly those in the general public comment section, are welcomed, and the staff and the Commission will take note and may consider them for inclusion into future Commission meetings. In addition, Commissioners can request staff to follow up on any questions raised by a speaker during the public comment period section, provided that the comments or the questions are within the city's subject matter jurisdiction. So, Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers for this section?
There's one hand raised.
Okay, very good. Okay, so one hand. And is this person virtual or?
Online, virtual.
Virtual on Zoom. Is our clock going to be present? Okay, hello? Can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Carol, we can hear you. Welcome.
Yes.
Sure, you have 3 minutes to speak on a topic that's not on our agenda tonight. That is anything essentially outside of the citywide pedestrian and bicycle projects. So can you see the clock?
No, but I'm not going to speak for 3 minutes. I have a simple request.
Okay.
Okay, so Carol Steinfeld, oh, now I can see the clock. I'm co-chair of the Water Committee of the Loma Prieta chapter of Sierra Club. That's your chapter.
Right.
And tonight, after I speak, I'll email you our campaign website calling on BOSCA, the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, to conduct hybrid meetings at which the public can watch and comment via Zoom, just as we're doing right now. As you know, BOSCA is our only democratic entity representing our water provision, since Cal Water is our utility. BOSCA stopped Zoom meetings in 2022, although some board members of BOSCA now participate via Zoom, and has resisted resuming those meetings, live stream meetings, despite many calling on them to do so, to resume them. So during lockdown, live stream meetings with remote commenting really livened up those BOSCA meetings, saw a new level of accountability. It was through our online comments that the Water Reliability Roundtable that explores local water supplies came about. BOSCA was doing nothing like that before, although that's part of its mission. I also saw that the Cal Water representative seemed to be absent for a year. So BOSCA's meetings are now held in person in Foster City. They're no longer in San Mateo. So please fill out that call to action that I'll email to all of you, asking for BOSCA to live up to this standard of democratic practice that we're taking part in right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. No more speakers. Phone? Nothing. Okay. All righty. If we have no more speakers on the general public comment section, I will close this item out, and we'll move to our next agenda item. So the general public comment section is concluded, and we're now going to begin our quarterly update on the bicycle and pedestrian projects throughout the city. This agenda item is for informational purposes only. The Commission will not be taking any motion or a vote. We'll begin with a presentation from Sue Ellen Atkinson, our Principal Transportation Planner, and Nicolette Chan, our Associate Transportation Manager. Sue Ellen and Nicolette's presentation will be followed by comments from the public. Once all the public comments on this item have been heard, I'll bring the discussion back to the Commission for questions, followed by final comments. So once again, staff presentation, public comments, questions from the Commission, and final comments from the Commission.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Nicolette Chan, Associate Transportation Planner, and next to me is Sue Ellen Atkinson, our Principal Transportation Planner. And tonight we'll be presenting you a bicycle and pedestrian program update. For an overview for tonight's presentation, we'll start with infrastructure projects, followed by planning projects, and then end with a grant update. Infrastructure projects. And before I begin, I just want to point out 2 new items on each slide that you'll start seeing with each of our update presentations. At the top right corner, we have this graphic here, which gives a very high-level view of where the project is at, so you can follow along and see the progression after each bike and pedestrian update. And then on this, at the bottom of the screen somewhere will be a short link if we do have a project webpage for that project, so those at home and here can know where to find more information on that project. So now I can begin infrastructure projects. First up is Delaware Street Safe Routes to School Corridor, where we are designing and constructing a Class 4 separated bike lane and bike boulevard on Delaware Street. The Class 4 separated bike lane is the street segment north of 28th Avenue, and then the bike boulevard will be south of 28th to Pacific Boulevard. This is a grant-funded project, and right now we are developing the preliminary concept designs, and we'll be outreaching those designs to the community later this summer, in early summer. And we actually have 2 pop-up events scheduled already. The first is going to be held at Delaware and 28th intersection on April 29th. Then the second will be at the Fieldwork Brewery on May 11th. As part of this project, we'll also do direct engagement with the San Mateo Foster City School District staff and staff from nearby schools, including George Hall Elementary, Fiesta Gardens International School, College Park Elementary, and the Nueva School. 28th Avenue Gap Closure Project. For this project, we are designing bicycle and pedestrian connectivity along 28th Avenue between Edison Street and Kine Street. And the bicycle facilities that will be implemented as part of this project align with the bicycle facility recommendations in our adopted 2020 Bicycle Master Plan. We presented this project, or the design alternatives for this project, to the Commission back in January when we had 3 alternatives, and now we are working on developing one of those alternatives to the 35% design plans, and that is Alternative C, which was the one-way separated bike facility on either side of the road with bus boarding islands and a pedestrian priority signal at Delaware Street. And once those 35% design plans are complete, we will be conducting additional outreach in person to the community. Pavement Management Project, Phase 5B. As part of this pavement project, we'll be implementing 2 bicycle facilities. The first is on South Grant Street from Concord to 16th Avenue, where we'll be installing a Class 3 bike boulevard and traffic calming in the form of speed bumps. And those will be installed after the paving has been complete. And then the next street is on Norfolk Street from Lodi to Dakota, which already has existing Class 2 bike lanes, but through this project, we'll be updating them to current standards and also updating the pavement markings as well. The bid was released in late March and is actually open for bids right now until May 7th, and we are aiming to award the construction contract in July 2024. Poplar and Humboldt Traffic Signal Project. At the Poplar Avenue and Humboldt Street intersection, we will be modifying the traffic signal poles to protect left turn movements in all directions. A protected left turn movement is when vehicles can only turn left when a green left turn arrow is displayed. And when the green arrow, left turn arrow is on, pedestrians have the red hand, so they cannot cross. So that eliminates that conflict between pedestrians crossing at the same time that vehicles are turning. The work for this project is mostly replacing the traffic signal poles so that we can have that left turn arrow signal in all directions. This is important, an important project because there has been a history of collisions at this intersection. Between 2017 and 2021, there were 7 recorded collisions involving pedestrians and left-turning vehicles, and there was also 1 broadside vehicle collision involving a left-turn vehicle. This project does align with the comments we've received from the local roadway safety plan and North Central Complete Streets plan outreach efforts. The bid for construction services will be released in late spring, with construction anticipated this summer and fall. School zone speed limits. We've been working on this one for over a year now. And as you know, we are reducing speed limits in qualifying school zones. The state is the one that has the criteria that streets need to qualify in order to be able to reduce the speed limit. And for this project, we did look at all streets that are adjacent to local schools. And those that did meet the criteria were the ones that are having the reduced speed limits reduced now. Phase 1, which included public elementary and middle schools, was completed last year. And the last time we presented an update, we were in the design phase for phases 2 and 3, which included private elementary, middle schools, and high schools. And now we are in the construction phase. The construction began last month and is expected to be complete in June. And we are also working on developing an outreach strategy to inform residents along those streets and schools about the new reduced speed limits. And that'll look similar to the outreach we did for phase 1, where we distributed yard signs to schools in English and Spanish and had the dynamic messaging signs on certain corridors. And after the construction is complete, we will have installed over 400 new traffic signs near schools as part of this project. And yeah, it's been a lot of work. 19th Avenue Fashion Island Class 4 Bikeway. This project, we're coordinating with the San Mateo County Transportation Authority and Samtrans, and it's for design and construction of the Class 4 bike facility with smart corridor elements. Smart corridor elements will includes real-time bus arrival screens and benches with USB charging. This project will connect to other projects in the area, including the Future Mobility Hub. It also complements the 101-92 interchange project and connects to the Delaware Safe Routes to School project that I was talking about a few slides ago. We have developed the conceptual alternatives, which shows how we would implement the bike facility, smart corridor elements, and mobility hub. And we'll be showing those alternatives to the community at a workshop scheduled for May 15th next month. Oh, and you may have also seen that this project received $500,000 in federal earmarked funds, and those funds will be used towards the construction phase. Hillsdale Boulevard Traffic Signal Project. For this project is located at Hillsdale Boulevard and Alameda de las Pulgas intersection, where we are designing traffic signal operations. And as part of that analysis, we're looking at how the intersection is currently used and also taking into consideration any bike and pedestrian projects that will be implemented in the future in that area. The project team has done a lot of work on this project lately. They developed 2 conceptual design alternatives, the first called pedestrian enhancement concept and the second a protected intersection concept. And they've done tons of outreach to show the community these alternatives. As shown in the graphics, there was a community workshop at Hillsdale Branch Library in late January that was well attended. There was about 60 participants there. The project team also had 3 online parent-teacher association meetings with Hillsdale High School, Laurel Elementary School, and Abbott Middle School. And there was also an online survey that was live since early February and actually just closed today. The project team is expected to have another community meeting to inform everyone about the findings from the engagement effort, and we'll come back to the commission with an update this summer. Next is the Downtown Parking Garage Pedestrian Safety Project, where we are constructing pedestrian safety improvements at Central Parking Garage, Main Street Parking Garage, and 2nd and El Camino Parking Garage. The commission has not seen this one in a while. We worked on the design back in 2021, and now I'm happy to say that we are in the construction phase. For the second El Camino garage improvements, we already have a improvement project at that garage, so pedestrian safety improvements in this project will be integrated as part of that project, and that improvement project currently has a planning application under review. For the improvements at Central and Main Street Garage, the bid closed last week, and we are aiming to award the construction contract this summer. And to dive a little deeper into this project, some of the pedestrian safety improvements are shown here at some of the garages. And so I'm just going to go over a few here. First are vertical clearance fixtures, which are the bars hanging above the entrances of the garage that state the maximum height a car can be to safely travel through the garage. And this is really important because the clearance fixtures we have right now can damage a car if it hits it, or they're just chains hanging that don't have a measurement for vertical height. We also, some of the other improvements include protected walkways, where we will be putting delineators or guardrails between the pedestrian pathway in and out of the garage and next to pay stations to separate the walkway from the drive aisle. And we also have warning devices that'll be near the entrance and exits of the garage. And this is to warn pedestrians of cars coming out of the driveways and vice versa, because at some of our garages, the building walls come right up to the sidewalk. And so it's really hard for cars to see pedestrians and vice versa. And now I'll hand it over to Swellen to talk about our planning projects.
We'll give Nikki a little bit of a break on talking. All right. First up is the citywide San Mateo Complete Streets Plan. So this project has been in front of the commission previously. This is our comprehensive multimodal plan that's aiming to be an overarching plan for all of our existing active transportation plans. It's in alignment with the newly adopted General Plan 2040, focusing on safety for all modes. Currently, we finalized our top 10 priority corridors, and we conducted citywide outreach in February and March. Many of you were able to join us at those community meetings. We had meetings that focused on improvement projects for each district, and those were well attended, and we received great feedback from the community. We're currently finalizing the draft plan and the draft design manual, and we anticipate presenting the draft plan to the Commission and City Council in May and June of this year. There we go. All right, as I mentioned, we had 3 community workshops as part of the final phase of community engagement. The first was focused on District 2, primarily the North Shoreview neighborhood. The second workshop focused on Districts 1 and 5 and was held here at City Hall. And then the final workshop focused on Districts 3 and 4 and was held at the Fiesta Gardens School. Next up is our Complete Streets North Central Plan, and that's a focused transportation planning document specifically for the North Central neighborhood. We brought this to Commission recently, and as noted during that presentation, we're really taking a focused dive into listening and understanding the needs and concerns of the neighborhood prior to identifying recommended improvements. So currently we've developed the Defining Needs and Community Goals memo that summarized the feedback that we heard from the community during phase 1 of our outreach. We completed phase 2 of our outreach in January and March of this year. And we were here last month presenting to the commission and then moved on to presenting to City Council as well. Currently, we are developing phase 3 of the outreach strategy, and that will be around our recommended improvements. So we're taking all of the feedback that we received during phase 1 of the project and bringing that together with data that we have available through other sources in order to recommend site-specific improvements. And then we'll be doing outreach around those specific improvements moving forward. So during the most recent few months since we've been here for a quarterly update, we did have our second meeting of the Lived Experience group, and that was around really a gut check on the feedback that we received from the community, making sure that what we were hearing was correct, collating all of that feedback into specific themes, and requesting prioritization of those themes moving forward into the plan. We had a few additional focus groups, including one that was solely for Spanish speaking residents and hosted in Spanish. And then we recently had 2 focus groups in coordination with the Home Association of North Central San Mateo, where we had 2 workshops in one evening. The first was for Spanish speakers, and the second workshop was for English speakers. And we had really great attendance for both of those meetings as well. So to date, the engagement on the plan has really been the primary focus of the work. So as mentioned, we've completed phase 1 and phase 2 of our engagement and moving forward into phase 3 this summer in support of getting feedback on priority projects once they've been identified. Next up, the Citywide Transportation Demand Management, or TDM ordinance. I believe that you heard a lot about this last night. So this is our comprehensive approach to TDM throughout the city. Again, it's funded by an MTC technical assistance grant. So we're really lucky to have a great consultant team and being able to work with MTC on this work. To date, we've held another round of focus groups with local developers and businesses in February. We presented to yourselves and the Planning Commission last night, and we will be taking the same material to City Council on Monday night for a study session. Another planning project coming out of Public Works is the local roadway safety plan. This was brought before the commission last month by our senior traffic engineer, Bethany Lopez. So this project is taking a data-driven approach, analyzing collision patterns in the city to recommend safety improvements based on those collisions, and then that can be applied at those locations and then at other similar types of locations. So again, this draft plan was presented to commission last month, and staff are taking the draft plan to City Council on Monday as well. And we do anticipate adoption in May of this year. And then for grant updates, we have one update. Staff submitted a grant application in November of 2023 for the CCAG Transportation Development Act, or TDA, Article 3 Bike and Pedestrian Program. The project that was submitted was a combination of a few projects from our Transit-Oriented Development Pedestrian Access Plan, which was also actually funded under the TDA Article 3 grant program. So the project submitted is focused on the downtown San Mateo Caltrain station and providing improved pedestrian access from the northern part of downtown and the north central neighborhood by creating a new entrance to the Caltrain station, and then improve pedestrian access in support of that. So staff has submitted the grant application, presented the proposed project to the CCAG Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee in January, and we expect to hear feedback from them next month. So with that, that concludes staff presentation, and Nicolette and I are both available for any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Chair Winsky had to step away real quick. Madam Clerk, are there any comments from the public?
No, none.
Great, thank you. And so with that, let's open it up to the commission for clarifying questions first, and then comments after that. Commissioner Rillmeyer, any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. That was a lot, a lot of presentations in one. I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned for the school zone speeds, state eligibility, that's only at certain schools. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. Through the state law, it's in the California Vehicle Code, there's a certain criteria that streets have to meet in order for us to consider reducing the speed limits on them. And I have the criteria here. So first, the street has to be within 500 feet of a school, which is approximately one city block. The street also has to be a residential neighborhood, which state law defines as 13 or more contiguous homes or business structures. And then lastly, the street can only have a maximum of 2 traffic lanes. So if the street meets all these 3 criteria, then the speed limit can be reduced to 15 miles per hour. And then if the street can be reduced to 25 miles per hour if the same street meets these criteria and is within 500 to 1,000 feet from the school.
So for the schools that are on Alameda, are they qualifying? I'm talking about Aragon, Baywood, and Hillsdale.
Currently, they do not qualify because Alameda is 2 lanes in each direction, which is a total of 4. So at this time, it does not qualify.
Okay. And years ago, I know that the Complete Streets is trying to kind of merge in the bicycle master plan, the pedestrian master plan, and some others. Years ago, there was also an Alameda plan to reduce the number of lanes on Alameda. What's happened to that?
That is still consideration. I believe you're referencing the Sustainable Streets Plan, perhaps, that included a recommendation for road diet on Alameda. And that recommendation is carried forward. In our Bike Master Plan, Alameda is recommended to have Class 2 standard and buffered bike lanes in each direction. And in the Complete Streets Plan, the recommendation for the Alameda corridor is to reduce the number of travel lanes. So I believe your question is, if that were to be the case, then we would reassess. And if Alameda then at that point, if and when that project is complete, meets the state criteria at that time, then we could reassess implementing the reduced speed limits.
Okay. So there's a lot on your plate right now. How far down the road do you think that would ever, is there any feasibility for that?
The feasibility is certainly there. Implementation and timeline really depends on funding availability.
Okay. And also, several of the projects that you just mentioned are grant funded, which is great. It sounds like those are the ones that are the most moving forward the most, other than maybe the pavement management plan. Can you just talk a little bit about the order of the projects, comparing that to where the funds are coming from?
We have a mix of locally funded projects and grant funded projects. For example, the Delaware Street Corridor is grant funded. Pavement management tends to be local funds. The Hillsdale and Alameda Signal Project is locally funded. It's really a mix. Poplar and Humboldt is locally funded. School zone speed limits, local. And the construction funding for the downtown parking garage project is locally funded. But we do try to go for grants so that we can supplement, because there are so many different competing needs for the local funds.
Okay. Great to see that you're going for those and getting them. I know it's not easy. The downtown parking garage, I didn't see Kiku Crossing, the Kiku garage mentioned. Was that one constructed so that it had these safety measures already built in?
Kiku Garage is not part of this project. This was done before Kiku was already built. But a lot of the improvements that are part of these parking garages, we have tried to make as a baseline for other parking garages in the downtown area. So for example, the Kiku Garage already has warning devices on the outside, already has a vertical clearance fixture, et cetera. Pedestrian pathways too.
Okay, great. I think just a couple more questions. Caltrain is making some changes now that they're electrifying, and they're, I think, planning to increase the frequency of the trains. So I know for me personally, that will mean that I'll take the train more often, and I will bike to the train. So I'm just kind of putting it out there and letting you know that I'm hearing from others as well that might increase bike ridership or pedestrian for those who are close enough to the train to walk. So that's, I'm wondering if you've thought about that increased train ridership in any of the downtown planning.
We have. And with the increased service, there is a need to enhance bike and pedestrian and Samtrans access, frankly, to our Caltrain stations because the parking that is available is finite. There are no plans to build additional parking for Caltrain. So specifically with our 28th Avenue gap closure project, we're really focused on closing that gap for both the bike and pedestrian networks. For the downtown Caltrain station, I know that Caltrain is actively looking for opportunities to provide additional bike parking because there are limitations to the number of bikes that can fit on the bike cars, even with additional bike cars. So looking at additional bike lockers, we already have existing e-lock bike lockers at all of our stations, but looking for additional options, potential for considering other options like a bike room down the line. So it is an ongoing conversation, but we are very aware and focused on increasing access via bike and ped pathways.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for now.
Who has questions? Vice Chair Narita.
Thanks. Thanks so much for that great presentation. I had a couple questions on specific projects. Do you mind pulling up the Delaware one, the first one, Nicolette? Awesome. Thank you so much. So on this one, I was curious if there's been any conversations with Bay Meadows, and I'm not clear on who owns what, but the parking for cars is like perpendicular to the sidewalk in the Delaware area, in Delaware Street before 28th, and that's like a lot of street real estate. I don't know what do you call it again? Huh? Right of way, thank you. Street real estate. I was curious, are there any conversations about like the best use of that potential right of way? Or has that right of way been given privately to somewhere? Or, you know what I mean? Like, how does that play into the decision for a bike boulevard there?
The recommendation for a bike boulevard comes out of our 2020 bike master plan, and it was made in consideration of the type of use in that location and the available right-of-way. Moving to a different type of parking would severely decrease the number of parking spaces that are available, and those were provided in order to meet certain visitor parking requirements for the projects that have been constructed. So there are some limitations in terms of approved project applications and the provision of visitor parking through those spaces. But the provision of the bicycle boulevard in that location is the speeds and volumes provide for that to be an acceptable facility.
And I share Commissioner Rudemeyer's concern about the electrification increasing both car traffic to the Caltrain station and also bike ped. This seems like an area of underutilized potential right-of-way, but I also understand the tension of the visitor parking. I'm curious though, there is a grassy pit in Bay Meadows. Is that construction supposed to be underground parking, but just hasn't happened yet?
I think we might have to connect offline so
Okay,
that you
I'm
can
sorry
give
that
me
I didn't-
that location, and I can look into the status for you.
No problem. I did not email these questions because
That's
we're in
okay.
back-to-back meetings, so
That's all
sorry
right.
about that. Okay, great. On the 28th Avenue bike lane, could you refresh my memory on alternative C? When we talked about all these alternatives, is this the one that's like more traditional, but is there something kind of quirky or innovative about this or something a little different? Because I recall each of them had something that was a little bit different. It's a slide right after the Delaware Street slide, I think.
I have the alternatives in the
Oh, you
background.
actually,
Here we go. So we can look at them.
Heyo, okay.
So alternative C should be on the next slide. There it is. So here's B and C, C at the bottom, where we'd have the class 4 from Edison to Delaware. And there was a lot of preference from the community that they liked C because the bike lane would stay close, adjacent to the curb.
Right.
It was similar to alternative A, but in A, there was more transitioning for the bike lane to go left of a right turn lane. And then alternative C was also the one with the pedestrian priority signal at Delaware, so it'd be similar to a pedestrian scramble.
Oh, okay, this is
Yes.
the alternative C is the one with the scramble.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was about to ask that part. Okay, great. I'm really, that's exciting that there's some sort of thing changing it up. Okay, great. And then the schools project, I just wanted to better understand what exactly is the construction? It's signage for the going 15 miles per hour. And is that it? Or are there also speed bumps or other things? Or is it just the, you said it's like 400 signs or something?
It was mostly signage
Okay.
for 15 miles per hour and also 25 miles per hour.
Okay, great. And then just in general, this is the broader question. For bike boulevards, is the city tracking any kind of data on usage and or instances of, accidents or anything like that when it comes to bike boulevards?
We do have a data dashboard that we have created in conjunction with the San Mateo Police Department, where collisions and incidents of different types are tracked, keeping in mind the data lags by about a year with state reporting, et cetera. With relation to bike boulevards in particular, we haven't broken it down by facility type to date, and we are in the process, or just recently updated the contract with our data collection firm that we have an agreement with, in order to have additional funds available so that we can do more in terms of bike and pedestrian volume counting. So for collisions and incidents specifically, that's more reported through police. In terms of volumes and usage, that would be a data collection firm.
Okay, got it. So there's no, all reporting on collisions or accidents has to be through the police, but there's no self-reporting opportunity or a place the public could share instances that they don't want to necessarily have go through the police?
Currently, we rely on data that's been reported by our police department.
Is that normal for cities to, are there instances, for instance, where there are more crowdsourcing data collections from the public? Or is it generally this is the way it is done, is only through official police reports?
Not to my knowledge offhand, in terms of crowdsourcing, et cetera, but that's something that we could look into and get back to you on.
Okay, thanks. That's it for questions.
Questions?
Well, my main question, you took the wind out of my sails because you did it already, which was I really wanted to bore down a little bit on the downtown parking garage project. So thank you for anticipating that. I think I had seen that, but probably a year or more ago, and I can't remember that far back. So, but thank you on that. So if you wouldn't mind, indulge me on one question that's a little outside the scope. Comes from last night's meeting a bit, but the TDM ordinance, there was a lot of discussion last night about below market housing, and I kind of wanted the staff's take on this. My understanding was that the point of the intent of a TDM ordinance is for the public benefit. It's not for the benefit of the tenants of whatever building. They may get that benefit by having education or bike racks or whatever, the TDM projects, but the whole reason the city would put in place an ordinance is to try and cut back traffic, which is a benefit for the public good, which is why we're talking about basically a public code, a law, regulation. But I'd like to defer to staff expertise. Does that make sense, or am I viewing it improperly?
I think that view is accurate in that the intent behind a citywide TDM ordinance is, at the core to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicle trips in an effort to meet our climate action goals by having more mode share across the available modes. So it is at the very root really an effort to curb the number of vehicle trips in the city by providing incentive and availability of other ways to get around to people. That being said, it's not meant to be inequitable in any way. So I think that the comments last night are something that we'll need to bring to City Council for feedback in terms of what direction they would like to take.
Interesting. Yeah, I spent years on the Park Commission, and I kind of view it as the in lieu fees that were imposed on most developments and that could be minimized by building some park or recreation facilities, but the intent was not to build those facilities for the benefit of whoever was going to be a tenant of that building. It was to take the pressure off the parks for the whole city. It was a public benefit. Okay, now I was curious. Very interesting. That's a little off topic, so I'm done. Thanks. Yes. Thank you.
Mine will be a little bit more straightforward, but interesting concept, though, Cliff. Yeah, good question. Let's see, could we put up the slide for the Delaware Street safe routes to school? There was a slide there. Yep, thank you. So here is my question on this project. Between Saratoga and 19th Avenue on Delaware, I seem to recall there's a fair amount of on-street parking, particularly on the east side. Does anyone know what's going to happen? Because that's going to be a Class 4 separated bike lane. What's going to happen with that on-street parking?
Since we're still working on the design, I can't confirm if that is the parking that might be removed, but we do know that there will be a handful of spaces that will be removed for the Class 4 bike lane.
Right, yeah. And that's something of importance because those cars between Saratoga and 19th, there's a whole series of apartments, and they do use on-street parking. And if the east side, the west side is less problematic. In fact, I don't see much on-street parking on the west side of Delaware Street. In this particular segment, I see it more on the east side because that's where the apartments are located. And as we know, the on-street parking needs are not going to go away. So then they move into the neighborhood, and the neighborhood could be impacted as well. Obviously closer to Delaware Street, more so than those homes or streets that are further east of Delaware. So I think that's something to be aware of. And Sue Ellen, I seem to recall, during the March 7th workshop on the complete streets, citywide complete streets, we were talking about the Alameda, and I specifically asked about on-street parking. And you said, yeah, there's a possibility we could lose some, but there would be some sort of, I'm not going to say maybe notification, mitigation. So I think this is a sensitive subject and something to keep and to figure out how we're going to handle this. Should we have to lose a material amount? I don't know what a material amount is, but there's a lot of cars parked in that segment because of the apartments.
Just to clarify, it would not be removal of all of the parking there. Right. As Nicolette mentioned, there's potential for removal of a handful of parking spaces, right, potentially. Right. But staff are still working on the design, and they are trying to minimize that.
Right. So, okay. But let's see where that goes. And Nicolette, you mentioned that there's a meeting April 29th and May 11th. Where are those meetings again? Or could the commission be sent a notice? Because I might be interested in attending the May 11th.
Of course.
Yeah.
So on April 29th, the pop-up will be at the intersection of Delaware and 28th Avenue. And then on May 11th, it'll be at the Fieldwork Brewery in Bay Meadows.
Right. Yeah, so if there's notices that go out to the neighborhood, if you can send them to the commission, and if anyone here wants to attend and can, that gives them an opportunity. Next question. In the packet, it mentions on the 19th Ave and Fashion Island Class 4 bike facility, it mentions air quality monitoring. And I thought, what air quality is, why would one want to monitor the air quality in this particular project?
That's a potential component of a smart corridor. So this project is still in the feasibility study and evaluating what options may be included in the preferred alternative. So this is combining a bikeway with a smart corridor, which is more technologically advanced elements, such as smart streetlights, potentially air quality monitoring, traffic signal detection enhancements, et cetera. In the community feedback, air quality monitoring was not an element that received much interest, and that may not be included in the final design.
Right. So why would one monitor air quality in this particular project? Because it's the first time I've ever seen it in any project, so it kind of caught my attention.
I don't think it's this project in particular or this location in particular for any reason. It's the first implementation of a smart corridor or a roadway with these types of smart elements. So were others to be constructed in the region, they may contain the same type of elements. But for example, when we have air quality alerts, there's information from various locations in a city as to what the air quality is. So this would just be potentially one additional location.
Okay, got it. So, alrighty. So, yeah, when we get air quality alerts, this could be shown on some sort of LED screen, something like that. Okay. I wasn't quite sure if we were like monitoring for some sort of gas leaking out of the ground or something.
No, it's not. It's not a sort of context-sensitive suggestion. It's really just an optional element that may be in a smart corridor.
All right, because that's the genesis of my question. I'm just like, oh, is it over a landfill or something that needs to be monitored?
No.
That's the genesis. Okay, got it. Thanks. And then one other question here, because I did attend the open house, I think it was back in the fall, I forgot, maybe the summer, on this, and it was very good. And on the western side of 19th Avenue, as we go closer to the Caltrain Haywood Park Station, it stops, and then we have this red line up here, and I seem to recall that red line is the Western Limit Pacific Boulevard. So one would take one's bicycle and then go onto that boulevard to Caltrain? I don't remember that. I seem to recall we had to go underneath an underpass or something.
Yeah, and 19th Avenue dead ends into Pacific Boulevard, and there's the 92 overpass right there, and then the bike and pedestrian access to the Hayward Park Station. So when we're looking at the conceptual alternatives, I believe we are looking at striping to facilitate that access.
Okay, got it. Yep. All righty. Okay, that's actually all my questions. Any final comments for Sue Ellen and Nicolette? Final comments? Sure.
Okay, I'll try to phrase them as comments and not questions, but I might get confused here. One thing I wanted to point out that I've noticed recently is on Barneson, right in front of Burrell, I've noticed in the middle of the street the past couple of weeks, there have been cones with little signs that say, I forget what, I have a photo of it, it says children crossing or, slow or something like that. I think, like slow down. Right in the middle of the street. on the line in the middle, and it works. It actually makes the street appear more narrow, and I have noticed, I walk the street several times every single day, cars have been going slower. Or have you done that? Or has the city done that, or is that something the school's done?
I believe that would be a school implementation because I don't think that the city was involved in that.
Okay. Well, I encourage you to go take a look. Hopefully they're up there all the time. I have noticed them the last last week or so. It started when they had an evening event, actually, and I noticed them during that. I was like, this is great. It's nighttime and people are leaving when it's dark, so it really did help. But they actually have stayed up, and I think it's great. It's really gives that perception of a more narrow street, which doesn't force. The cars voluntarily go slower. The drivers go slower because they think it's more narrow. Another commissioner mentioned, was asking about police reporting of data. Something that has come up recently with me, it wasn't traffic related, it's related to crime. We were inquiring with the police department about crime in our neighborhood, and we're told where there hasn't been any in that particular time period that we asked about, where we knew that there had been some car break-ins reported. And we had them dig a little bit further, and it turned out that it was in their system, but with an unknown address. And it was corrected. But my point is, do we have any backup? Because it seems like maybe we need more than just one source of data when it comes to collision data.
I think that would be a question for our colleagues at the police department if there's any additional sources. For collisions, it may be a different type of reporting than car break-ins, et cetera, because those incidents are shared with the state for the SWITRS database for collisions and incidents, and those incidents are all traffic related. So it may be a different type of reporting, but we can certainly follow up with our police colleagues and respond back.
Yeah, I just think that for collision data, because also there's just so many near misses that don't get reported, and so many collisions that don't happen because people are afraid to go out on their bike or walk. They feel safer in their car. So I think having some other avenue for collecting data on near misses and collisions might be helpful in the future. And I think that's it for me.
Any final comments?
Sure, thanks. So thanks so much for the presentation and answering questions. I'm very excited about all the activity happening around the Hillsdale Caltrain station, because that's mine, so obviously I'm biased. And very excited about the scramble idea on Alternative C. I also wanted to bring back up on the Poplar Humboldt traffic signal, just deep appreciation to staff for addressing this issue. I remember very, very clearly during pandemic time when we're all virtual and we were taking the vote on the North Central bike lane, there was a mom who spoke, and it was her first time ever doing public comment, and she talked about how scared she was to cross the intersection of Poplar and Humboldt, and she was opposed to the bike lane because she wanted to use her car to cross that intersection because she was scared to do it as a pedestrian. And so I just wanted to lift up the fact that I remembered her comments so clearly, and the fact that now, it's been a couple years, but hey, we're working on addressing it, and that's incredibly meaningful and the whole point of public service. So I thank you very much for that. In addition to that, I want to go back to the bike accident and near misses. I do think this is a long-term idea. This is not something to implement by next quarter update or anything, but the crowdsourcing of data, I think, is really valuable. I really enjoyed, and I apologize that I missed last month's meeting due to illness, but I really enjoyed understanding, when we were doing the safety report, that there were, during the stakeholder engagement, there was opportunities for folks to talk about things that happened to them when you were doing the alternatives for the 28th Avenue, like there were opportunities for stakeholders to tell their stories, and those don't show up. Because when we think about who's using the bike lanes or who are pedestrians in the community, and you cross-reference that with potential comfort in engaging with police, it's probably not strongly correlated in a lot of the communities and a lot of our populations. And so I just want to lift that as how can we be innovative? How can we lean on, Silicon Valley Bike Coalition or community partners or churches or other leaders from the lived experience working group that you have in North Central? How do we develop those types of, networks outside of just that one neighborhood? To potentially think creatively about how to crowdsource some additional data. I'm thinking about this on a long-term, 5-year vision of data collection. This is not something to implement tomorrow. But I think it will help inform, especially as we go back, because Sue Ellen, you've told me, it has in other places, bike boulevards are just not as, there is data from other locations that bike boulevards are just not as great as other protected bike lanes, but we need the data here in order to better understand how to make choices once those bike boulevards are implemented, which ones need to be reevaluated in a 5-year time frame, let's say. And then the last thing, to Commissioner Robinson's question on the TDM ordinance and the point of the total point of the policy. I apologize if my questions yesterday created confusion, so I will back it up a little bit more. So I asked about the exemption for 50% affordable housing projects because when something's exempted, it means that the folks within that project who live there will not be able to participate in those programs to help get to the exact North Star goal that we have, which is to reduce the number of vehicle trips in the city. We are when something's exempted like that, it means that those folks are not necessarily going to be seen as part of the solution, and so it's a difference between intent and outcome. The intent of this TDM ordinance as it stands in the current draft is completely beautiful, sound, lovely, and the outcome that I can foresee, given this exemption, is that we would be proactively leaving a segment of the population out from being part of the solution that we all seek. And so that, the difference between intent and outcome, is the reason why my questions started on the affordable housing specifically. And they also apply potentially to existing residential projects, which I understand have some legal parameters that, the city staff need to navigate in order to even make a recommendation as to whether or not that can be included in the TDM ordinance. So that's a difference and the impetus for those questions. And to that end, I think one of the things I want to flag for the TDM ordinance and the affordable housing conversation is that I think it needs to be an ongoing conversation. I do appreciate that, we have a limited amount of time to develop this ordinance, a limited number of stakeholder engagements. My experience with affordable housing, working in 36 cities across the United States on buildings and building policies, is that affordable housing, because they are so burdened with so much of that Byzantine policies that other commissioners had mentioned, their first response to everything has to be no, because they have to save their staff time for the things that really matter. And so I am curious as to whether or not, the staff of the affordable housing, the folks who were part of the stakeholder engagement, I'm curious if they felt the urge to say no immediately because of that constraint, or if it's no because of actual, we tried to do TDM somewhere else and it just didn't work out, it didn't pencil out, et cetera. We didn't get to that level of detail in the conversation yesterday, but that's a level of detail that I think creates the best possible policies. And it might not be this version of the TDM ordinance. It could be that the policy manual gets re-updated in a few years, as you develop these stronger relationships with affordable housing developers on this issue. But I would hate to leave that on the table and not have it be a continued evolution and conversation over the long term to try to really parse this out. Because with policy development, it is those who are the most unlikely to necessarily be able to be part of the solution that we should spend the outsized amount of time trying to figure out how to actually bring them. And that means, in this case, the affordable housing community. Thanks.
Okay, I have no final comments. Commissioner Roberts.
Yeah, Vice Chair Narita, you and I will have to meet for coffee. There's no Brown Act problem at that point, and talk about this more. Yeah, because my perspective is, and of course you're going to take back to council, be interesting what they think, is that the affordable housing projects of the community is not being left behind from a benefit, but is rather not having a burden imposed upon them. And you know, my years with Samaritan House tells me that that's a population that suffers from a lot of burdens, and it'll be an interesting chat. So let's have coffee when we can, and we'll continue it there. Thanks.
Okay, everyone, we've just finished final comments, and I'm going to close out this agenda item. Excuse me. So we have concluded the quarterly update for the bicycle and pedestrian projects throughout the city. Thank you, Sue Ellen and Nicolette. Good to see you. The final item on tonight's agenda is reports, announcements, and meetings of interest. Anyone have anything they would like to share? Reports, meetings, announcements?
Through the chair,
Yep.
if I might just give an update on upcoming meetings. So our next meeting is, a regular meeting is May 8th. We've got scheduled for that update on the citywide complete streets plan. We've also got Rail Corridor Transit Management Association report. And then our June 12th meeting, we do have our annual election of chair and vice chair scheduled for that meeting, as well as we would be bringing the small cell design standard and ordinance update to that meeting. And we don't currently have anything scheduled for the July meeting, and typically August gets canceled for summer vacation. So that's just a look at the crystal ball coming up.
Okay. Thank you. Yep, Sue Ellen, yep.
Through the chair, just an update that we are very excited to be having our citywide bike rodeo again this year, and that's scheduled for Saturday, May 4th. We'll be sending out an invitation to commissioners if you'd care to join us, but we're really excited. That's a great opportunity for kids and their families to come out, learn safe bike and pedestrian activities, have a small family fun ride around the neighborhood, supported by the San Mateo Police Department. Great music, raffle. It'll be a really good morning. So we'll have more information coming out on that.
Yep. And, please send that to the commission, and likewise the meetings for the Delaware Street. That's what I understood, these are the next round of meetings. And, regarding meetings and the commission, there's no need to obviously do anything special for us unless you believe that is worthwhile or sensitive to your time. But just let us know what you're doing and we'll pop in. Really. Okay, everyone. As we know, our next regular commission meeting is Wednesday, May 8th, starting at 7 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned, and good night.